Man with the most perverse boxing gloves in history, the Incu Edwin Valero. An altercation with Tyson was the closest thing to the word fear. It would be September 1965 that the world would see the birth of Lennox Lewis, the Lion of London, United Kingdom. Lennox Lewis was born in a small neighborhood in London. His mother, Violet Blake, is half Jamaican, and his father, who abandoned the family when he was little for reasons labor. Violet moved to Kitchener, Ontario, Canada, with her son Louis at the age of 12 years. There, Lennox would discover his greatest passion, which would later lead him to take on the baddest man on the planet, Mike Tyson. His classmates laughed at him because of his particular accent, and Lennox usually responded violently. For this reason, he was included in a regional boxing academy in Waterloo, in the city of Kitchener, to try to channel that energy into boxing. It was there where he found an ex-boxer, Mateo, who taught him everything he knew, who became his coach and mentor. At 17 years old, he would win his first gloves golds in Toronto in 1982. The following year, he won the World Amateur Championship Junior Sub-19, held in Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic. Lennox that consecrated with gold at the 1988 Seoul Olympic Games in South Korea against the future world champion Reddit Technical Porn. Applause. Louis the Lion gets the title of the Commonwealth in April 1992, previously rising to the world top 5 in this way unanimously. On October 31, 1992, Louis knocked out Canadian Donovan Razor in 2 rounds, to position himself as number 1 in the ranking of the World Boxing Council, choosing to this way to the title. At this time, the world champion was Reading, which he snatched world titles to Vanderfield, who did not want to face Lennox after having lost in the Olympic Games. Then, the WBC declared the title vacant, stripped him of his belt, and subsequently declared Louis as the new world champion on the 14th of January 1993, the first time an Englishman had done so in the 20th century. Louis defended the title 3 times, facing Tony Jackson and Fran Bruno, before suffering a technical knockout on September 24, 1994 in the second round of the fight. But Calvi landed a right hand to Louis's face, who fell to the canvas, but reacted and got up when their recounted 6. However, strangely, the referee stopped the fight. It was a very fight criticized, since the referee stopped the fight prematurely, losing Louis the WBC title. But this defeat would only cause the Leon Lennox Louis to come back with 14 victories, 13 of them by knockout, in the first rounds. Although he had 2 defeats and a draw, Louis by the year 2000 he was established and retaining his double WBC titles. He would face Jason Graham twice in a row the same year. In his first fight with American on April 22, 2001, in Carne City, Backman, South Africa, Louis would lose by knockout in the 5th round, but Lennox would ask for a rematch on the 17th, November 2001. In that rematch, Louis won spectacularly in the 4th round, regaining his titles and consecrating a subsequent fight with Mike Tyson. The fight would take place at the Pyramid Arena in Memphis, Tennessee, United States, on June 8, 2002. Tyson had been out for a year and a half for biting Holyfield, but upon returning, he had 5 consecutive victories that ended in the first 2 rounds. The fight cost almost $125 million, where Tyson would earn $30 million and Louis $25. Lennox was a favorite, but Mike always had that magic around his name, making people excited for him. The atmosphere in the Pyramid Arena was tense and the venue was packed with fans of boxing who expected an epic fight. Louis' team requested additional security in the ring, and for the first time, there was a human chain of security through the kingdom. From the beginning of the fight, Lennox Lewis showed himself to be a technical and calculating boxer, while Mike Tyson tried to approach quickly with his characteristic aggressive style. The great difference between both boxers was evident in the distance and control that Lennox maintained in the ring, managing to land important right blows and uppercuts that had Tyson in shock. Issues. In the 3rd round, Tyson managed to land a big uppercut on Louis' jaw, which made stagger the British. However, Louis did not lose his composure and kept his distance from him. proving that it was more than just a hit. In the following rounds, Lewis managed to impose his technical combat style, connecting with his powerful fists and properly blocking Tyson attacks. The sixth round was one of the most exciting of the night, with an intense fight for control off the ring. Tyson pressed Lewis against the ropes and landed several blows, but Lewis responded strong and left Tyson on the edge of the canvas. Even though it looked like Tyson might fall, he managed to stand upright. In the following rounds, Lewis maintained his control over the fight, causing great frustration on Tyson, who couldn't find the opportunity for him to cause damage. However, in the eighth round, Tyson managed to land a left hook that hurt Lewis. But this time, the British resisted and withstood the offensive, managing to move forward. In the final rounds, Tyson began to show evidence of fatigue, which allowed Lewis to take a greater advantage in combat. Finally, the referee had to stop the fight in the eighth round, after Tyson took his fair share of blows and showed that he was no longer in a position to continue. Lennox Lewis looked confident and dominant throughout the fight, while Mike Tyson struggled, but seemed to be one step behind his opponent. The result was evident, with the superiority of Lewis, who achieved a unanimous victory on the judges' cards. This fight was a lesson in how technique and tactics can overcome brute force. Despite Tyson's undisputed power, it was not enough to defeat an opponent who showed himself to be smarter and more cunning in the ring. Exactly, the fight between Lennox Lewis and Mike Tyson was a true example that boxing is more than just brute force, but an art in itself. Both boxers embodied two different approaches in the ring. Tyson represented ferocity and aggressiveness, while Lewis personified technique and intelligence in his boxing. Lennox Lewis demonstrated a masterful ability to maintain control of the fight, using his range and movements of him to keep Tyson at a distance, avoiding his attacks and thwarting his attempts to get closer. Lewis seemed to read Tyson's movements precisely, anticipating hitting him and responding with precise and well-calculated blows. On the other hand, Mike Tyson, famous for his impressive knockout power, tried to apply his style characteristic, but he encountered an opponent who was prepared to face him. Lewis showed that boxing is not only about hitting hard, but also about having a clear strategy and a technical ability to adapt to the circumstances of combat. In each exchange, you could see how Lennox Lewis sought to make his way with well-placed blows, executed, avoiding falling into the trap of a fight purely based on strength. His capacity to dodge and counter Tyson's attacks, in addition to his controlled aggression, allowed him to maintain dominance throughout the fight. The fight between Lewis and Tyson was a beautiful spectacle that made it clear that boxing is a discipline in which technique, tactics, strategy, and intelligence are equally important than physical strength. The art of boxing lies in the ability to combine all these elements to get the victory.